Hello and welcome to this week's Friday Facebook Live. I hope that no one has been thrown by the change of time. Sometimes it's necessary for me to move things around from the 12 o'clock time just to accommodate other commitments that I have and to work around clients. So, assuming you've managed to make it here okay, I'm talking this week about firstly, the blog that went live on Monday, which was the third in the series of keeping children out of conflict. And this one was focusing on how do you know how your children feel following a separation. And the other thing that I really wanted to talk about, which I'm going to dive right into now, is that if you don't know, this week has been Family Mediation Week. And the great thing about Family Mediation Week is that it is lots and lots of different family mediators and other professionals who come together to really make some noise about family mediation and what's involved and what the benefits are of using family mediation to work out arrangements following a separation. And if you haven't seen on Twitter or Facebook all of the different stories and pieces going around, then I would really urge you to have a look. There's some fantastic blogs and videos and resources, as well as professionals talking about their work. There is also sort of pieces from those who have been involved in a separation who are reflecting on what they did and sometimes reflecting on what they should have done but didn't, and them talking about what they would do if they could turn the clock back, which I always find really powerful. There's also some great things that have come from children who have had their parents separate. There's a particularly powerful poem that I know I've shared this week that really touched me, about a child worrying that their whole life was a lie because their parents' relationship sort of often when a couple separate, people around them can try and make things better with things that they say. And a lot of things they can say is that, your parents were happy, it's just that they're not happy with each other anymore. And all of those things which come from a very genuine place of trying to make things better. But this poem was really the child's thoughts about the fact that they felt that their parents' relationship had been good until they came along and that they were the one that messed it up. And I know that I've talked a lot, and certainly one of the things I'll come on to today is about how children can feel it's their fault and not want to voice this. And that's something that I'm sure anybody watching this feels is really heartbreaking. And that's why it's very important to reassure children that none of this is their fault. So if you haven't had a look at the Family Mediation Week bits, please do, because there's some really incredible stuff out there. You can either access everything via their website, which I put the link in afterwards on this video, or if you Google Family Mediation Week, I'm sure that you will find it. Or you can look at the stuff they've been putting out on Facebook or Twitter. I think that's a really good resource if you are going through a separation yourself, or if you're supporting a family member or a friend going through a separation. It can be really hard sometimes to know what to say, but being able to direct someone to some really useful information can make you feel that you're doing something to help them. So definitely have a look at that. So on to today's blog, and this is about knowing how your children feel. And as I said before, it's part of our series of keeping children out of conflict. So what do I mean by how can you know how your children really feel? Well, if you're someone who is going through a separation or who has been through a separation, then have you ever said any of the following? The children won't talk to me about it. Or, well, they were a bit upset to start with, but they seem fine now. Or, well, I don't know, we tried to talk to them, but they don't really want to talk to us. I think they're talking to their friends. Any of those kind of things. And again, I really want to make the point that when I put together these blogs and these Facebook Lives, the intention is absolutely not to come from a space of, well, you've got that wrong. My intention is to come from a space that not everybody gets things right all the time. I most certainly do not get things right all the time. And it's important that you look at, okay, I may have done some things wrong. I may possibly have not got things done as well as I could have done, but actually there's no point at which you can't change the way that you're doing things. You can always say, I was on that road, but actually now I'm moving over to this road because I think I'm going to start doing things. And that's really important to remember. There's never a point where you think, actually, do you know what, I've messed this up and I can't make it any better. Yes, you can. And I have certainly seen people make changes quite a long time after separation to put them all in a better place. So if we trace back the separation to the moment where the children are told about the fact that their parents are separating, in an ideal world, they will be told by both parents that this is happening, and they will be reassured that they still are going to have a relationship with both parents that's going to be a strong, loving and nurturing one. It may be that you don't know all the arrangements yet, but you can explain what you know so far, and that you will definitely talk to your children again once you know more. The really key messages are that they are loved and that they are free to have a relationship with both parents. And as I spoke about a little while earlier, that this is not their fault. And that's a message that I think needs to come over and over again, and something that needs to come up in conversation. I have heard so many stories over the years that I have been working with parents who are separating, of parents reporting that their children said things like, is it my fault because I wasn't nicer to my sibling? Is it my fault that I didn't keep my bedroom tidy? Should I have, done this and that? So it's really important that that message gets through. Secondly, it's really important that you keep an eye on how your children are going forwards. Sometimes there can be a big upset and then things start to settle down. That puts life back on an even keel, but it doesn't mean, oh, hurrah, everything's back to normal now. It's really important that you keep an eye out for any changes in behaviour. So that might include being more angry than normal, or reacting a bit more to things, or being withdrawn, or just strange things, being secretive about certain things, any kind of things that you think, that's a bit out of character. Now, unless your children are really little, you usually do not spend all day, every day with them. They may well go to nursery, they may well go to school, and in which case it's really important to talk to your child's educational provider, whether that's a nursery or a school or childminder, so that they can be aware of what's happening and they can also watch out for any changes in their behaviour. And that's useful in the sense that your children are in a very different environment there. So sometimes things can manifest themselves in other environments and not at home, or equally sometimes your child can appear fine to other people, but the changes manifest themselves at home. So it's helpful to have that other eye on things, and so that you're all working together as a team to support your child. Thirdly, be aware that sometimes your children are worried about talking to you because they love you both. You're their mum and you're their dad, and they don't want to say anything that might mean that they upset one parent or the other parent, or they say something that's going to cause a difficulty between the parents. For example, there can be throwaway comments about, oh, don't tell your dad that, or don't tell your mum that. That's instantly putting your child in a situation where they feel they have to keep the secret. You may not even mean it when you say it, but that's a really important point, that you don't want to put your child in a situation where their thought process starts that there's some things that they can share with mum and not with dad, or with dad and not with mum. So that's really important too. It may be that they don't want to talk to you about things because of the fact that you are too closely involved. And it may be that they have another family member or a family friend, or they have other friends who understand what they're going through that they're talking to. It's important that they have safe space where they can share how they're feeling. And that doesn't necessarily have to be with your parents, but it's important to keep having conversations with your children about what's happening going forwards and about how they feel. It can change over time. Sometimes they can need a little bit of time just to share things with you. One of the statistics that I saw as part of Family Mediation Week was that of a survey of children whose parents separated, 1 in 4 children felt that no one had talked to them about what was going to happen or sought their views on what they might like to happen. And that really spoke to me, because I think it's important that children are kept informed about things. This can be an issue that I think causes people a lot of angst, because clearly there are things that children don't need to know. You know, if the marriage has ended because one parent has formed a new relationship or moved on with that parent, it may not be appropriate that the children know that at this stage. It may be that actually they just need to know mummy and daddy are separating, or mum and dad are not getting on and they're going to live separately. They may not need to know that. They certainly don't need to know the ins and outs of how much money is being paid, that mum's taking dad to court, or that dad's told mum that he's going to get a court order. All of those things children don't need to know. But the basic things that will affect their lives, such as, are they going to have to move house? Are they going to have to move schools? What changes are they going to see? If one of their parents is going to move out, that they need to know when that's going to be, so that they can prepare themselves for it and so that they can understand what it's going to look like. You don't want to be in a situation where your children go off to school and they come back and any trace of their other parent has been eradicated from the house. That would be a really upsetting experience to walk into. So all of those things are really important in talking to children about the changes that will happen, and about the emotional changes. You know, it's important that you talk about the emotional stuff, and particularly for children who are sort of a bit younger, often they can feel emotions and they manifest themselves as sort of tyrants of throwing toys or hitting or strong feelings or all of those things, but they can't necessarily name the emotion. One of our roles as parents is to help children to name the emotions and manage the emotions. So if they see you saying, actually, I'm really sad at the moment, I'm going to need some time to sort this out, or do you know what, I'm seeing someone that I can talk to about this and that's really helping me, or I'm going to need to sleep a lot more because I'm feeling really tired at the moment. Whatever it is, talk to your children about it where it's appropriate. I don't think it's inappropriate to share information about your emotions, but clearly things can become complicated, and it's up to you as the parent to make a judgment on what you feel it's important to share or not important to share. But what I'm talking about is acknowledging when you're feeling sad or angry, and just explaining to them that it's a normal part of what you're dealing with, which is a significant and important thing, and what you're doing to help yourself with that. That can all be good modelling for children for the future. And, you know, it's not easy to be a parent at the best of times, even when you are full of health and vitality and happy. So parenting when you feel, you know, half or a quarter of the person you are, and you've been through a devastating situation which you are incredibly upset about, is tough. And you're not going to get it right all the time, because no one gets it right all the time, even when they're in a really good space. Keep the conversation going is the last thing that I want to say. There is no point at which you can't ask your children about the separation. And, you know, sometimes it may feel strange a year on to kind of say things, but you can just ask, how are you doing? You know, how are things for you? Is the things working for you? Do you like spending a week at mum's and a week at dad's? Or do you like the way that we have different weekends? Does that work for you? Is there anything that we can do better? Is there anything that upsets you? Or is there anything you think we do really well? Talk to your children about the situation so that they know that there's a space with you where they can bring anything up or talk about things. And the other side of that is that if your children bring things up or want to talk about it, create that space where they can. And, you know, we all know that sometimes our children choose the worst time to tell us that they really need to talk about something. And you're just about to go out the door, or you know that you're not emotionally in a good place. And sometimes, you know, you need to acknowledge that I'm not in a good space right now. I really want to talk to you, but can we come back and talk about this in 10 minutes when I've had a cup of tea, or tomorrow when I know I've got more time? Whatever it is, so that you know that they want to talk to you, they know that you want to talk to them, but you're just putting it in a place where you're both going to be able to have a much better conversation about it. So I hope that that's been helpful, talking about this in more detail. As ever, if you would like to receive all of the resources that we share for free, then please sign up for our mailing list. There'll also be a roundup from Family Mediation Week, and you can get onto the mailing list by going to bit.ly/LKW And if you're a professional who works with individuals or couples who are separating, then I have a separate mailing list for you that not only gives you resources that you can share with your clients, but also gives details of our networking and training events. And the next training event is Getting Started as a Family Mediator, which is coming up on, I think, the 6th of February. And that's a course aimed at anybody who thinks they'd like to become a family mediator, but really wants to understand what's involved before they part with lots of money to go on a foundation training course. It's really important to understand what the requirements are for training and for doing your accreditation. And I break it down, as I do with my consultees that I supervise, into manageable chunks so that you can look at it in stages, which I know is much more helpful and much less overwhelming. So if you would like to get onto our mailing list for professionals, go to bit.ly/LKW sign up. That's all for me this week. I will be back next week talking about what the benefits are of getting it mostly right for your children when you separate. And I will be back at the normal time of 12 o'clock next Friday for the Facebook Live. So have a good weekend and stay warm, because it's been really chilly out there. Thanks.